Thank you for staying with the Monday Report. Let's start with a quick update here. 6 Iranians have pleaded guilty in the 8.2 billion methamphetamine haul case. The 6, Jassim Dardahesh Nia, Nadim Judgal, Hassan Baloch, Rahim Baksh, Imran Baloch, and Imtiaz Daryeh, admitted to trafficking 1,036 kilograms of meth before Chief Magistrate Anthony Mwishigi at the Chanzu Law Courts. The offense was committed between October 17th and 20th, 2025. The suspects now will be held at the Shimolatewa prison pending sentencing. And to further continue this conversation is Honorable KIPCHUMBA MURKOMEN, the CS for Interior and National Administration, joining us here in studio. Thank you for making time, Waziri.
Thank you very much, Trevor.
On the 7th of January, that was about last week, President William Ruto gave your ministry and the Office of the Attorney General 10 days to come up with a new legal framework aimed at disrupting the drug trafficking networks in Kenya. First of all, how far is that?
First of all, thank you very much for having me, Trevor. And while I was seated here in your earlier bulletin, I saw that this is a season where we are discussing young people. We are discussing also mechanisms of making sure that we cut the supply of drugs and alcohol by ensuring that as many of our children are in school as possible. And I've seen that on a number of those kids, some of them you covered today. Now that I'm here, I know we have so many other Kenyans who have not even been covered. With your permission, if I may also sponsor one of the students and perhaps take the young girl called Ruth Akiru.
Yeah.
I'm told that she's going to Tartar Girls, very good school. I really want to, with your permission and the permission of the family, offer support to sponsor the girl.
By all means, we appreciate on our behalf.
And then, first, before we go even to the legal reform, let me just contextualize first that we have a crisis of alcohol and drug addiction in the country. And this crisis is really manifested in the statistics that were established after a research done by NACADA, which established that 1.3 million Kenyans, actually like 5 million Kenyans, 4.9 million Kenyans are addicted to one substance or the other. And that with clarity that about 1.3 million Kenyans are fully addicted to alcohol. And then you have about 300,000 people who are actually addicted to cannabis. The abuse of alcohol in Kenya is about 3.3 million people are abusing alcohol. And then the other drugs and substance are abused by almost 2 million Kenyans. That makes it about 5 million. And the point I'm making here is that this is a crisis that is not just about government. It's about society. And we are confronting this challenge. In the past, we have attempted mechanisms that included, going around pouring out alcohol and, these very juakali methods of dealing with it. The president, having seen our report last year, and remember during the launch of Jukwaa la Usalama report, I went to all the 47 counties and did 48 meetings, which were included 2 meetings in Mandera, Mandera and Elwak. And out of all that, there is no part of Kenya that we did not find drugs and alcohol abuse. Number 2, I need to contextualize by saying that the threats, the top serious threats to national security are terrorism, banditry, alcohol and drug abuse. But of the 3, the most widespread challenge we have in the country is the alcohol and drug abuse, because it's in every part of the country. When you talk about the threat of terrorism, it is sometimes confined heavily in some parts of the country. Banditry is also confined to a few counties in the country, but there is no, and I can say there without fear of contradiction, there is no family that does not have at least a known relative, in fact, in the nuclear family, who is addicted to alcohol or drugs. And the biggest challenge we're dealing with here is that a young population, the study shows that 1 in every 8 students in the university has abused or used a drug in one way or another, or abused alcohol. So when we say it's a national crisis, it calls upon all of us to come together. And that's why in the measures that the president proposed, the first measure was to strengthen the anti-narcotic unit. Basically, at the moment, we have a very lean unit that has about 192 officers. It doesn't have enough resources, doesn't have vehicles, doesn't have office, doesn't have the resources for testing and surveillance. And the president has, pursuant to his direction, again, when he had a meeting a week ago, he gave directions to the Treasury that provide resources to strengthen this team by increasing it by another 500 officers, well-trained, to carry out intelligence-led operations on matters of drugs. Number 2 was to look at the legal framework, which you've talked about, is to revise the legal framework, and the proposals that are already on the table is to enhance the age of drinking, the minimum age of drinking from 18 to 21. It is also to ban online sales of alcohol. By the way, that is an area where there is a big crisis. Many parents do not realize that most of those things that their children are ordering, in fact, ordering alcohol online from shops that are sold online, makes it possible for underage to receive alcohol because it's being ordered and delivered in their houses, and there is no way on mechanism of monitoring. It is also to ensure that prohibit advertisement of alcohol for a certain period of time, to create alcohol-free zones, including around schools and public parks. There is a big problem of licensing. At the moment, we are struggling with licensing. If you look at some places, county government licenses are offered. You will find a small center. Like we have a small center in my home there in the part of Trans Nzoia, called KIPCHUMBA. You have a very small center, and it has about, you're told about, liquors, selling shops, about 10 in a very small center. In some centers, we have even about 300. And so the point is to make sure that we have now stricter legal framework in terms of licensing. But in terms of punishment,
the problem is
in terms of punishment,
it's not a legal issue. It's more of a shortfall and a self-defeating corrupt system that exists.
Definitely.
Anybody can access alcohol through the cracks. The officers, who are some of them under your ministry, are corrupt.
First, let me start by saying the first part of dealing with this societal problem of drugs and alcohol abuse starts with the family. When the family unit becomes dysfunctional, the children are not being monitored. We have a problem of monitoring because of the pressure that current parenting, when parents go through. Many children are always online. Many parents are struggling to feed their families and leave their children to be sometimes brought up by school or technology and so forth. So there's a parenting problem first. There's a society problem. Number 2, some of us who grew up in the village knew that you grew up, you are a child of the society. The society brought you up. If your parent does, and if a neighbor finds you doing the wrong thing, they beat you, they discipline you and so forth. Now we have a more individualistic society where nobody touches the child. In school, nobody bothers to discipline the child. At home, nobody is disciplining the child. You even have cases where the children are actually parenting their parents in a sense that they are parents on their own. So first of all, we must deal with the family unit because that's where the problem starts with. Then you move now to the rest of the society. The first part of it is the licensing. Those people profiting from this kind of business, stocking of these goods. Why would you allow in the next center people are stocking poison? You have the people who are packaging also ethanol and selling to people. So there's a problem, a moral problem in the society. But if you go also to the enforcement, you will find that, and I have to say this over and over again, even during Jukwa, that you will never see a place where there's a prevalence of alcohol without the complacency and the sometimes cooperation and support of the OCS of that area, the police officers of that area. First of all, you need to know that there is a crisis in public service. About 160,000 public servants are addicted to alcohol. So in the first place, the people who are expected to help us deal with alcohol are themselves addicted. You remember in one of the Jukwaa la Usalama sessions in, that was Migori, one of the police officers came here drunk, completely drunk, completely. And when I asked the stories, that he has been like that for some time. So we have a challenge of, first of all, even the people you're expecting to run this issue are facing the same crisis. The second issue is to say that corruption is really at the heart of this problem is corruption. Yeah, where there is a collusion between the chief and the OCS and the police, they facilitate processes of ensuring they protect the brewers. Sometimes when there is this nationally led crackdown in particular area, for example, when we were in Jukwaa la Usalama in Trans Nzoia, in Kitale, there was an operation that was undertaken that evening because we were with DIG Masengeli and then Akada CEO Moriko and the others, and they did an operation an evening before the Jukwaa. And some of the people who were arrested were saying, how did this happen? Did the local police officer know? Did the person in charge of police here know? Because they know that these are people already compromised to provide protection. In places where alcohol is sold, definitely corruption is the biggest enabler. And that's why, that is true. And that's why in the proposal from the president was that we must have a command center at the national level that brings together the security chiefs, the intelligence, the police, the drugs issues, even KDF because of border security, and the asset recovery unit and so forth, so that together we can come together and do an intelligence-led operation where the intelligence is collected. This special team that is being established with the anti-narcotics unit, working under the leadership of NACADA, will now carry out crackdowns and focus on the big boys, because without the supply side, without the people who are manufacturing or packaging this kind of alcohol, or the people who are actually selling and transporting, it will not be, without them, the alcohol will not be delivered. So the focus will be like this. Why this is different is that it will borrow, and you heard the president speak about it, borrowing from our anti-terrorism efforts or strategies, and also borrowing from the recent strategies we have been applying in the banditry-prone areas, where instead of just going around and the chiefs are pouring alcohol and so forth, that will continue in a smaller scale. But this operation that the president has announced is going to be different. It's going to be intelligence-led. We will particularly target the big boys. That way, because they go to the local area and corrupt the local security agencies, this team that comes now from far, and which shall have been vetted and have certain layers of oversight, the same way that we have now with anti-terror strategies, we'll be applying it in the alcohol, because there is no point for us to pretend here that we are fighting crimes like banditry, which kills less people than alcohol and drugs. And so it's important that those strategies that are being applied dealing with banditry and also terror be applied in the fight against the drugs. But Waziri, there are no guarantees that that system will not be corrupt either, the special squad that will be established. Because we saw just last week, 8 KDF officers, though that's not directly under your ministry, but it's in the security system still, they were arraigned in court for being part of the team that smuggled part of the meth that had already been gotten and been gotten through the hall. So it means even this new squad will still just be compromised, because it's the same people you want to rely on. So how will this be different? Isn't the fact that 8 KDF officers were arraigned in court good news? Isn't that a story of success? That no matter your position, you will be arrested, you will be found, you will be charged in a court of law. I believe that that is part of the stories that we celebrate, that despite the fact that there were officers who are expected to abide by a certain level of integrity, when they breached their code of conduct and they broke the law, I am very happy that there is a system in Kenya Kenya that can net those people and take them to court. So that is success, and that will be the case. The fact is this, that because we are saying this intelligence-led strategy, this will avert even, we will be able to arrest certain situations even before it happens, because you collect the intelligence early, and because there is a team that can be deployed, resourced, and capable of reaching any part of this country, they will be able to do stink operations and arrest the persons who are involved. And then, because of the multi-agency approach to this, we are combining forces with the Financial Recovery Strategies Center. We're also dealing with Asset Recovery Agency. So that now what we are going to do is this. We get you a lorry transporting illicit alcohol. We don't just take the goods. We also confiscate and seize the lorry. And then in the proposed law, these lorries will be sold, or these assets will be sold. If we find you brewing Chang'ai in a particular land, that land is declared proceeds of crime, and then the land will be seized, it will be sold, and the resources that come from it will be used on rehabilitation exercises. So it is important for us to realize that this multi-agency approach will bring all these players under one roof, and they will agree. When we go for a particular notorious ethanol or adulterated alcohol, we will go for him in terms of arrest by the police. The KRA will come for the taxes. The Asset Recovery Agency will come for the assets to recover. We must make it painful and punitive for that person to function.
But will that deter the big fish? So
definitely.
Because even these Iranians, you see Iranians, do you believe that they are the ones who own this meth worth 8.2 billion, or are there people behind them?
Before even we come to the 6 Iranians, let me say this, that the big fish can only feel the pain of loss of revenue, because what is driving them is a primitive accumulation of wealth, that they want to profit and benefit from blood money by destroying the lives of young and old people across the country.
Why
and
not
so
go for them?
the way, that's what I'm saying, you go for them, you arrest them, but you go for their assets. If you go for them alone, you know what the courts have been doing? You arrest a particular, there's a notorious one in Eldoret, I don't want to mention his name, Eldoret and his environment. He operates all the way to Trans Nzoia, Elgeyo Marakwet, and is distributing, I think he comes from my county actually, based on the intelligence report. He is very notorious in transporting ethanol around North Rift up to Nandi and all those places. And definitely the security agencies are going to go for him and his persons. But every time he's been arrested, why people know, he's arrested, he's charged in court, the court fined him 1 million. But the profit he gets maybe in a week is 10 million. So what is 1 million to him? It is okay, you arrest, you take them to court, the fine is 1 million, he goes home, he continues with his business. Now, the new strategy is to make sure that that is painful by seizing that the goods, by seizing their property, by declaring all their resources that they have made, money they have made, to be proceeds of crime. That becomes punitive. The other strategy that we will you had asked about the Iranians, whether they are the ones to blame. First of all, we believe
the owners of
first, it's good news that they have. It's good news that they have admitted that they are guilty. Of course, the rest of the legal process will go on. This is transnational crime. We are getting cooperation from partners from the region and beyond internationally. Remember, this was not just an operation that was done by the people of Kenya. It was based on intelligence from the other partners globally, including Interpol. And so as we continue with the investigation, looking at the source of money and profiling all these people, eventually I'm sure that the big boys will be established where they are. Sometimes you'll find that these countries that are at war, or drug lords, there's countries that are invested with a lot of drug lords are the ones that are controlling these drugs. But also, I was trying to tell you that the other strategy is to make sure that we deal with our porous border. I should read for you the statistics here. The illicit alcohol is extremely prevalent in the western part of the country. We have a challenge. Number one is now Kakamega. It used to be Trans Nzoia, followed by Trans Nzoia, and then Kisumu, And all the western counties are among the top counties in terms of prevalence. Nairobi is actually number 5, and so forth. The reason why it is prevalent in that is because of our porous border. There are a number of border points that are unmanned, and they are porous. And part of the strategy that the president has directed is that we establish more vehicle checkpoints across, which are multi-agency, equipped with proper equipment, including drones, that they can monitor those areas. So you will see us soon, a place like West Pokot, a place called Konyao, and its environment, you will see a new checkpoint that will ensure that the porous borders are dealt with. Some places also in Narok, or Posmoro, for example, and its environment is a porous point. Some places in northeastern, some of the places also in Taita Taveta. So the point is to increase the number of manned points where they have other porous points, and also multi-agency with layers of intelligence and various stages of reporting that can make sure that there is accountability in terms of the teams that are working together.
The President spoke about the death penalty, which is unconstitutional. It's not implied in the strict sense of it. So what arrangements in terms of legal policy adjustments do you want to make to achieve that? What does that look like? What did he mean by the death penalty?
Well, I think death penalty, of course, has been declared by the courts to be unconstitutional. But the president was expressing when the president speaks, he sometimes speaks like a father, who has children, but also the father of the nation. So he was, figuratively speaking, in a manner of speech, the president was ached by the challenge and the problems that we have. A number of young people are dying of alcohol addiction, some of them in abuse of cocaine and heroin, and among others. And these are people we know. They are our neighbors, our friends, the children of our friends. And so because of that, the president himself wanted to give an expression of the extreme we are willing to go as a nation. But of course, it's upon us as policy, from a policy perspective, to reduce it to what can be implemented. And in this sense, when we sat down and engaged His Excellency the President, he was okay with us enhancing the number of drugs that attract life sentence. So eventually it will be life sentence. And some of those drugs that were not incorporated are these ones that are manufactured, like the meths and among others. A number of them that are now increasing, synthetic drugs and so forth, that are increasingly being used by young people and very destructive to their lives. We need to increase them to the fold, together with heroin and cocaine and other lethal drugs that will attract life sentence.
There's a political angle to this as well. The former deputy president actually recently said that the war against alcohol in the Mount Kenya region faded away with his exit. But he also accused members of the cabinet, saying that there are 2 known drug barons in the cabinet. Do you know them, first of all? Your cabinet.
First, let me start by saying that the first part of the statement is very unfortunate, because the deputy president of Kenya does not fight drugs in his village or in his region.
You mean the former deputy?
Yeah, when you are a deputy president, even Professor Kindiki, even the president, even me as a cabinet secretary, I can't come here and talk about drugs in Elgeyo Marakwet, drugs in Eldoret, drugs in Rift Valley. As a cabinet secretary, my concern is to fight drugs and alcohol and everything that is wrong in the country, wherever it is and wherever it may be. Mombasa used to be a very notorious area for many years, the leading. But now the figures have gone down because of the efforts that government has put in place over time. And not just this administration, from the last administration. Those efforts are borne fruits because there was targeted, focused. I was with President Uhuru, for example, when we went to ban that ship that was carrying drugs, when he went to bomb that ship in Mombasa, in the high seas. So the point is that the first unfortunate thing about the former deputy president is his obsession with tribalism when it comes to fight against anything, whether it is education, whether it is alcohol, whether he sees everything from the prisms of his own personal, parochial, tribal angle. So that alone, the premise of that conversation is in the first place wrong. Number 2, when he was in office, his record is known. It's very clear. And I'm willing to swear an affidavit. Everything he did was to extort money from potential, these companies that are selling alcohol. For you to get license, you have to see me. For you to do this, you have to see me. So I don't think that the principle is that if you come to Equity, we must come with clean hands. He is very notorious in engaging in acts of extortionism.
But you have not.
Number three,
it's not even been reported anywhere. In fact, you're in the Ministry of Interior.
I'll come to that. Number three is that you had a scheme that was called a rehabilitation scheme. That was absolutely, you cannot show one rehabilitation center he engaged in or supported, except you see money being expended, but you don't see the people being rehabilitated. So I think that when it comes to the discussion on drugs and alcohol abuse, the last person to give us a lecture is the former Deputy President, because his record is known to be dismal. I hasten to say I don't want to be like him and reveal things that used to happen when we were in cabinet and meetings.
You already started, but
I'm just saying, no, these are not cabinet related. I'm just saying in his office. The worst part of the former Deputy President is that I had never seen a more incompetent public servant who understood no single subject in government operations or government policy. The reason why you see the former Deputy President ranting all the time is because he's covering his incompetence. He cannot, and I dare you, I want you to invite Gachagua here and I come with him. Let us debate anything about our policy in this country, on anything, including alcohol, including coffee, including tea, including education. That man understands absolutely nothing. And I can see the people of Kenya to the face and tell them that I have worked with this man so closely, and it is his record in terms of understanding public policy is very dismal. So it cannot be a point of reference. That is why I cannot take him seriously when he discusses other people by saying that, a cabinet secretary is selling drugs and so forth.
You said there are two drug barons in the cabinet.
There was a clear process of vetting of all public servants, including all of us who came to cabinet. If we had an iota of that, if any of them had even an iota of that allegation proven, of course, they would never have held public office. So these are just political gimmicks out there. Let me tell you this. We are fighting drugs and alcohol abuse in the Republic of Kenya, including every part of Kenya. Today, you saw a number of dens in Murang'a were destroyed, despite the fact that Murang'a ranks almost number 30. It's among the fairly well-doing counties in terms of fight against the drugs. Nyeri is among 20-something counties across the country. But you see that the fight is going on in every part of Kenya. In fact, the focus now as a nation is to focus on the top counties and the poorest points that are letting in these drugs and alcohol abuse.
What is the best strategy in your view? Dealing with the supply side of things or the demand side of drugs and
I think that we must have a multi-pronged approach, but start the most urgent issue is the supply side immediately. You must. Why we are doing this rapid response is to make sure that we deal with the supply side very urgently. Yeah. And the reason why
they say it's only influential people actually
absolutely
at the top of
yes, exactly. We need to first go for the most influential people. The people who are brewing, the people who are importing, the people who are transporting, these top beneficiaries. That way, you will first cut the supply down. The other part is to deal with the porous borders. Make sure that, because these are transnational crime. It comes together with guns, bullets, and trafficking in persons. So all of them, these transnational crimes go together with the drugs itself. Some of the serious porous borders is the parts of Moyale, for example, and the operations that we are doing in that side of Moyale has netted a number of cocaine and cannabis, which is transported from neighboring countries. As I told you, in the western part of the country, there is a lot of porous borders around that place, and there are also some parts of northeastern, parts of coast region. All these areas we must deal with. By the way, there is also a very interesting phenomenon. You know that in the last 1 year, we enhanced our crackdown against banditry, especially in many parts of Kerio Valley. There are still some parts we are dealing with. Something shocking, because in a very short time, in less than 6 months, we were able to collect over 1,100 guns. But what is shocking is that when we got peace along the Kerio River, we established that the bandits, apart from carrying out acts of banditry and creating safe zones for themselves, during that period of enhanced activities of banditry, they were planting cannabis along Kerio River. So there is a lot of cannabis along the Kerio River in both Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, West Pokot, Turkana, that now we are uprooting and dealing with in those areas. Okay. And I believe that the strategies that we applied to banditry, being applied in this fight against drugs and alcohol abuse, will definitely bear fruits. And this is a fight that we must wage together jointly with the support of everybody so that we can be able to succeed.
Another plan was the establishment of 47 rehabilitation centers in the 47 counties.
Yes.
How far is that? And how do you want to establish new rehabilitation centers? Well, the ones that exist are barely functional. We
actually don't have proper rehabilitation centers. In fact, something closer to government rehabilitation center is in Miritini, in Mombasa, and a few other places, smaller rehab centers in every county. Pursuant to the directive of the president, I wrote a letter to all governors to request them to provide land where they already have a rehabilitation center or where they planned to establish a rehabilitation center for purpose of the national government to be able to help in the ecosystem of housing. It is possible for the national government, as we construct this housing where they have schools. You see the housing concept with schools, nearby hospital, markets, and so forth. The president is engaging the stakeholders, including in the housing sector, to see if rehabilitation center will be part and parcel of that, and therefore construct a model rehabilitation center for every county to start with. Interestingly, from the letter I wrote to the county government, some counties have written to say, can you make it 2? Because then it means that the need is there. Mark you, Trevor, we have as I told you earlier, 1.3 million addicts of alcohol. You know, the existing commercial run rehabilitation can not be able to deal with it. The president also directed that we create proper rehabs within the referral hospitals. Currently, one of the rehabs I know is the one for Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and it has done a fantastic job, but it's too small for it to resolve the problems of rehabilitation across the country. And as we deal with the crackdown, as we make sure that we do the crackdown, the addicts will having lacked the supply. You know, what that means is that they will then have withdrawal symptoms, and those withdrawal symptoms are dangerous. They can lead to loss of life. So the most important thing is that as we do the crackdown, you also provide rehabilitation, and that's why it's urgent for the referral hospitals across the country to be on standby as we continue with the crackdown, provide facilities for treating these persons, and then subsequently it should be followed by rehabilitation. And even as we build these rehabilitation centers, the ones existing in the public and the private sector ones, should be able to help. Unfortunately, the private sector run rehab centers are very, very expensive. If the government one is expensive, because I know the high cost that, for example, the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and it's still affordable because it's a public hospital. But now the private ones are extremely expensive for ordinary Kenyans who want to get treatment from addiction.
Okay, let me read out some of the feedback for you here. I'll read quite a number of them so that you can react to them. Paul here says, if Murkomen is sincere, let him kill police protection rackets first. No Changade nor bang peddler survives without police cover. Target the officers, not the addicts. Another one here from Uma Neko says, Nakada alone can't win this war. We need independent civilian reporting, anonymous reporting channels with cash rewards. Okay, anonymous reporting with cash rewards. If a cop is exposed and convicted, the whistleblower gets paid. So there's cash rewards, there's dealing with the police at their level. And then there's also another one here who says alcohol and drug abuse is not a mystery. It thrives in poverty, corruption, easy access, and political hypocrisy. Fix those 4 things ruthlessly and abuse collapses. Anything else is just noise. Another one, Priska, says, good evening, Trevor, and I truly appreciate your support towards supporting Ruth and grade 10 student from Trans Nzoia. That is appreciating you, Honorable KIPCHUMBA MURKOMEN, for the support for the student. You said you deal with Ruth Akiru, who's meant to join Tartar. Another one here, George Njoroge, says, ask KIPCHUMBA MURKOMEN to start with every police station. 30 to 40% of his officers are suffering the same thing, and it's extremely serious. Walk into any police station and you'll see for yourself the crisis there. And Dr. Hafit Gargar says, lovable irony. Our super CS KIPCHUMBA MURKOMEN justifies that senior leaders drink alcohol, yet claims he's fighting it. Leadership begins with leaving the message, not explaining it. Now you can react.
Yeah, that's true. First of all, I agree entirely that some of our security officers and some of our administration officers and some of the public officers, including in senior offices like the ones we had in the past in occupying as high officers as the Deputy President's office, are part of the impediment to the fight. You know, they look at the financial gain, the things they are going to benefit from. So it's not a war. Why the president has lifted the conversation to this level is because the crisis is real. Number two, the addicts, you must look at addicts differently. And unfortunately, I used to get angry when I see a relative is addicted and so forth, until some doctors told us that when someone has become an addict, that's a patient. It's no longer, you don't start, it's now a disease. You don't blame them. You don't blame them for being addicted. You try to look for solution for them. So we have a number of police officers who are addicts. And as you know, we have moved a number of them to rehabilitation centers. And I agree with those who are saying that in a number of police stations, you'll find an addict police officer. And some have gone through the process and recovered successfully. But you need to know that the addiction is not at the level of police only. As I told you, about 160,000 public servants are addicted to alcohol. That includes people in high offices, politicians, members of parliament, MCAs, people in very high offices, by the way, CEOs of companies. If you go to some of the rehabs, of course, these are confidential information, you will see people who have become strong and accepted their situation, lawyers, engineers, doctors who have been addicted before, who have sought help, and those are the courageous ones. But there are many people we lose in families who die, senior professionals who have been addicted to alcohol or drugs. So this is not a problem of just the poor. It is wrong to just level it as a problem of the poor. It's also a problem of the rich. In fact, the sellers of the manufactured drugs and the cocaine and the heroin and so forth, the ones who have the networks of supply, they target children from well-to-do families. That's why they target colleges and schools, because they know that once they create dependency on these children who come from well-to-do families, then they have a constant supply of resources that will enable these people to steal from their parents and continue that addiction, and therefore market is existing. That's why it's an evil strategy. It is targeting kids at the high school, university, and the college level, and then they know that when they go to the marketplace, they will have consistency in terms of application of this issue. So I agree that why we are having this conversation, so the problem is existing, and why are we coming out this way is to say the strategies we have applied in the past may have worked, but to a certain level. It is now time to upscale this fight to the level of a national security problem that needs to be confronted from the top. Yeah. But we will never succeed. I see some people saying, oh yeah, give incentive for people who give the information. Trevor, let me tell you this. It is not for lack of information that this scourge is not being fought. It's not for the lack of information. The information is there. Kenyans are giving information. But as you've said, rightly said, some of this information or some of these plans are lost in the middle because of corruption. You know, the officer who's being given the information is the one giving protection to the drug peddler, or giving information on uncover and protection to the illicit alcohol seller. Yeah. That is why this National Command Center will make sure that provide oversight where those officers are going to be removed from office. For an officer to allow ethanol, for example, to cross the border, and is a KRA officer, there is a problem somewhere.
Yeah.
There is a problem with the person of immigration. There is a problem with the person of police, and so forth and so forth. So the point I'm saying is that as we fight this alcohol, one of the biggest challenges is to deal with the corruption itself.
Okay.
And therefore, you will be seeing most of these officers either sacked. Sometimes you have the intelligence report that this is the person who has done it, but you don't have hard evidence to take to court. Okay. And so we take disciplinary action based on the failure or acts of omission in the areas that you have been asked to man.
All right, Waziri, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for making it.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to tell Kenyans that we will not succeed on our own. We request every citizen of this republic to play a role in the education. I wonder, Trevor, just as a closing remark, why we are so preoccupied, all of us, including church leaders, discussing politics and politicians and who will win elections, who will be 1 term, 2 term, 3 term. And when issues like this come out, we do not take them seriously and address it in our churches. Yet, our pastors are addicted. We have a number of priests who are addicted. They are in rehabilitation centers and so forth. This is a crisis that requires collective fight. And I want to request Kenyans that let's put our politics aside. Let's put our political sides aside. Let's avoid seeking cheap political points from this very important national exercise that we need to fight together, and let us rally together and save our children and save our country from this couch.
All right, Waziri, thank you so much. And special thanks for agreeing to support Ruth Akiru, who is supposed to join Tartar Girls. We'll follow up with that and make sure that they get to school. Nicholas Otieno, Moses Njiru, you'll be supported by Johnson Sakaja Foundation. The governor for Nairobi says you go there tomorrow. Guru Raval Devki has also sent in his view, saying that he will support the children who are unable to join school. So we appreciate that very, very deeply here on Citizen TV. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, there's still a lot more coming up in just a bit. That has been our conversation with Honorable KIPCHUMBA MURKOMEN, the CS for Interior and National Administration, specifically on just war on alcohol and drug abuse. All right? See you in a bit.